you familiar with cryptocurrencies?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Not too much.
Who owns cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin? So, I host a meetup. It's a weekly meetup in Toronto, it's called That Crypto. The meetup is a website where people get together, and there are like weekly presentations that I give, and they also on YouTube. I don't know if you are in Toronto on Tuesday nights, so you can come and visit and meet other people and ask questions and so on. And also, I am a Waves blockchain ambassador. Waves is another blockchain. You probably heard that Bitcoin is the major blockchain and the major cryptocurrency is the first one. All other cryptocurrencies, such as spin-offs of Bitcoin, basically, with different added features. Today we'll be talking mostly about Bitcoin. However, at the end, I will touch on some other cryptocurrencies and blockchains. So, just when I say Bitcoin, mostly I'm talking about the blockchain, and it's the main cryptocurrency. My name is Denis Serebryakov. So if you just check the meetup.com, that crypto, it's the meetup where we get together every Tuesday. And one more thing that I've learned from Edward Snowden. Have you guys heard of Edward Snowden?
Yeah.
So Edward Snowden, he was a whistleblower that showed us that what the NSA in the United States spying upon everyone around the globe, basically. And he said, never say to anyone that you own cryptocurrencies. That's not safe for different reasons. Okay, let's start. What I want to mention, I don't know what's your idea of Bitcoin and crypto, what you've heard in the media, but lately a lot of articles and media outlets that are talking about how Bitcoin is used by criminals for illegal activities like drugs, money laundering, and because Bitcoin is anonymous, that's how it was created. However, I just checked through the entire history of Bitcoin, like 10 years, over 10 years right now. It's estimated that $2.5 billion was laundered using Bitcoin. 10 years globally, all over the world, 2.5 billion. And I just checked today that last year only in Canada, 47 billion was laundered through real estate. I don't know what's the scheme of laundering the money through real estate, but anyways, and Canada is quite open country with hard laws, and it's quite difficult to launder money. However, this is the scale if you think about it. 1 year in a small country like Canada, 36 million, and 10 years globally, Bitcoin is 2.5 billion only. The criminals, they use all sorts of tools. The Bitcoin is just one of them. Criminals use smartphones, criminals use cars, criminals use internet and computers. So no one talks about it. However, because Bitcoin is kind of new, so everyone, especially the media outlets, they want to have some kind of clickbait articles. So they're talking about how criminals use Bitcoin. And I read an article by the DEA agent, drug enforcement agent, and he said that they actually love Bitcoin because every transaction of Bitcoin is public. It's online and everyone can track. All transactions can be traced. The difference between the bank account and Bitcoin is that your Bitcoin account is not connected to your name. However, at some point you need to buy Bitcoin somewhere or spend it somewhere, and that's where your name can be connected, because you use bank accounts or you buy something that's delivered to your home address. So and once your name is connected to one of the addresses, and all the addresses can be tracked through the entire history of Bitcoin. It will stay there forever. So that's why Bitcoin is not anonymous. It's another word for it is pseudonymous. So it's kind of no one really knows who owns the address with Bitcoins on it. But if you search long enough, you'll find out eventually. And that's why the law enforcement agencies they kind of like cryptocurrencies because they're pretty much open to everyone. And in recent years, the criminals they use Bitcoin less and less for that purposes. There are other cryptocurrencies that are more private, so they try to use them. However, they don't protect the anonymity, provide the anonymity 100%. So on October 31st, 2008, when it was Halloween in Canada and the United States, in the mail list of cryptographers, someone by the name Satoshi Nakamoto just sent an email and he said, I invented the peer-to-peer electronic cash. And he sent to everyone the white paper that's called Bitcoin. It's only 9 pages long. And in his idea, in his white paper, he claimed to solve the double spend problem. I'll talk about it later. However, the double spend problem was a huge problem for electronic cash. Well, basically, the idea is that when we have a physical cash, if I give it to someone, I don't have the cash anymore. But if it's electronic, it's just a file, so it's easy to copy and paste. And if I send this file to someone else, there's no guarantee that I don't have a copy for myself and send it to someone else. And that's why right now, when we use electronic cash, we use third parties like banks to manage the ledgers with our transactions. And the banks make sure that we do not double spend, that we do not spend the same $100 twice, but we send it to different people. So that's why we rely on third parties or intermediaries or middlemen, as I said here. So the Satoshi Nakamoto in his white paper, he solves this problem, how to remove the middleman, the someone who is keeping the ledger for everyone.
Like a bank, for example.
Like a bank, yeah. But people won't be able to double spend their money. For the next 3 months, so in this email list, people like cryptographers and programmers, they were asking questions. They were, at first they doubted that the problem was solved in the end, because for 20 years in the 90s and 2000s, a lot of people were trying to solve this problem without any success. Basically, it was impossible to remove the third party holding the ledger for everyone. However, on January 3rd, 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto started the blockchain, mined the first block. The first Bitcoin appeared on January 3rd, 2009, and it's been live ever since. So every 10 minutes there's a new block mined on the blockchain. The interesting fact that no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. No one knows if it's a human, if it's a man, a woman, if it's a group of people. There are a lot of different theories of who it may be. Some of conspiracy theories say that it could be even a government agency like NSA or drug enforcement agency. Something like that. They created this transparent money transmitting system to be able to actually track criminals online. We don't know. The most ridiculous theory I've heard that it could be an AI from the future, maybe, that created this system to manipulate people, just using the game theory to build the biggest computer network with the most computing power, which Bitcoin is right now. It's the largest computing network with the most computing power in the world. No one really knows. Satoshi Nakamoto was in contact with other developers for 2 years, and I think it was 2011 when he completely disappeared. The last email said that I moved on to other projects. His wallet though contains about 1 million bitcoins right now, but they will never be moved. They have never been moved like from the very beginning. So whoever the guy is, like he has a huge temptation of not moving his coins. Does anyone know what's the price of Bitcoin right now?
7,000. No, it's supposed to be 8,000.
Right now it's 8,000. Like it went up today, but from 7 to 8 US dollars. So yeah, that's a huge temptation if you have 1 million coins in your. So the idea of creating Bitcoin was the removal of middlemen, banks. Censorship, like why it's good to remove the middlemen. Banks, they collect lots of fees, and also they impose censorship. So we don't see it in Canada. It's not a big problem because we live in a more or less free country we have a freedom of speech. We have a solid banking system, arguably the most solid in the world if you judge by the 2008 crisis when all the banks in the world suffered except Canada. That's another coincidence that exactly the same year when there was a financial crisis that Bitcoin came into existence. So for us, it might not be a big problem to have a middleman bank that keeps our money and our transactions are not censored. We can send money more or less to anyone except maybe like the WikiLeaks, if that's a big deal for someone. However, there's still the censorship. So if you try to send money to Iran or to Russia, to your relatives, you might have questions at your bank. Or if you receive the money from those countries. It happened to me recently. I traveled to Russia, so I'm Russian. And my credit card got blocked there, even though I kind of notified the bank that I'm going to be traveling. And on the phone, I was told that, yeah, that's a sanctioned country, so we needed to make sure that everything is safe, so they blocked my credit card. So this censorship resistance doesn't exist in Bitcoin because it's a peer-to-peer connection. You send money from one person to another. As I mentioned, Satoshi Nakamoto solved the double spend problem and the question of privacy. So banks collect a lot of information about everyone. That's just the nature of banks, and they collect information about transaction, about purchases, about anything, and also they provide this information to law enforcement agencies. Maybe it's okay if it's a law enforcement agencies, they're doing their thing. However, we see how a lot of companies they're being hacked, including banks, including Equifax last year, and this private information about individuals gets leaked and hackers can use it for identity theft. Other illegal activities. So what is Bitcoin in general? Bitcoin is many things. So when Satoshi created this particular project, created Bitcoin, he probably combined all about a dozen of different inventions that existed by that time, besides the double spend problem. And each of those cutting-edge inventions probably wouldn't work if you tried to implement it. It would require several iterations. But somehow it magically happened that all of them, they started working from the first try. And let me just go from top to bottom. Hard money versus easy money. Satoshi was looking at the financial system of the world with fiat money, with the money that's not backed by anyone, and the governments of any country, they can issue and print as much money as they want. 150 years ago, we had the gold standard where people just used gold to pay for everything, and that was hard money. Hard money means that's the money that's hard to produce. Every time we decide what we're going to use with the money, starting from the ancient time, we were using shells, then we were using fur, glass beads somewhere in Africa. So you have two options. You can exchange something for money, goods or your services, and you get paid, or you can produce money. If it's glass beads that were used in Africa, and they didn't have the technology of how to create glass beads, so it was rare. It was very difficult to produce money, so people would work and they would exchange their goods for glass beads. However, when Europeans came and they had the technology of producing glass, so they would bring ships full of glass beads and they would just exchange it for the wealth from Africa. And then no one's using glass beads as money anymore. And eventually we moved to gold, because gold is very difficult to extract from earth. So whatever we do anywhere in the world, we don't have the technology of easy extracting gold. And at some point we had a gold standard. However, with time we just moved to fiat money, which means by decree, and it means that the governments can print money unlimited, basically, as much as they want. That's why we experience inflation, because every year the governments print, I think Canada prints about 10% of the money stock that's available every year. Increases the money supply by 10%. US increases by 5%, but only because the US dollar is the global currency. It's a global reserve currency, so there's a lot of US dollars all over the world. Anyways, Satoshi decided that the bitcoins will be scarce and limited. There will be only 21 million bitcoins in existence. Right now, there are around 18.5 million bitcoin issued. And with time, when the demand increases but supply is still kept, so the price of Bitcoin goes up. We can see what's happening right now, though it's hard to say because the market is relatively small and it's driven mostly by speculation. And because of the scarcity of Bitcoin, it's a very good store of value. So if you keep your savings in Canadian dollars, so the inflation will eat up from your savings year after year, and 10 years from now you end up with 70% or so. If it's about 2%, 3% of inflation a year, so you'll lose a lot of money if you keep it as cash in the bank. However, with Bitcoin is a different story. There's no inflation. The Bitcoin is limited. The good money also has to be divisible. So when you use it as a medium of exchange, so you need to be able to pay for a cup of coffee or for a car. So you can divide Bitcoin by 100 million pieces and send 100 millionth of one Bitcoin. It's counterfeit-resistant, so if we use gold, we don't really know what's inside of those metal. If you take out the gold from the vault, probably it loses 20% right away, because in order to put it back, they need to run the chemical analysis and see if the gold is real. It's quite difficult to run trade with gold, and also it's very difficult to divide into smaller pieces. With Bitcoin, all Bitcoins are real. So your software actually runs the validation and it won't accept something that doesn't qualify as Bitcoin. So it's impossible to create a fake Bitcoin. Hardly. I don't know if you've heard of forks. Sometimes people just copy the code and they start running different rules, and now we have lots of different versions of Bitcoin. But this is just like a social contract, because there are Canadian dollars, there are American dollars, there are Australian dollars, so many different dollars. You can choose whatever you accept. However, when you choose which currency you are accepting, like Canadian dollars, you can actually tell that this is real Canadian money. And the Bitcoin, the entire network is not controlled by anyone. There's no central party, there's no central server, there's no central person besides what's going to happen with Bitcoin. It's just a software running on millions of computers. Maybe less than millions, but tens of thousands, that's for sure. And Bitcoin is decentralized. So as I mentioned, there's no central authority. It's permissionless. Anyone can join the Bitcoin network and anyone can start using Bitcoin. You're not required to provide your identity. You're not required to have a bank account or an address. It's censorship resistant. You can send payments to anyone, anywhere in the world, and it's global. It works anywhere where there's internet, and even now there are companies that launch satellites that transmit data to Earth, and then you can actually communicate with Bitcoin networks through that satellites. You don't really need internet, if that's a problem. So how does the entire Bitcoin ecosystem works, and how Satoshi solved the double spend problem? First of all, it's a public ledger, so all transactions are public, and everyone can see them online. There are a lot of different websites they call blockchain explorers, where you can see all the transactions. And to prevent the double spend, everyone who runs the Bitcoin node, who keeps the ledger, keeps the copy of it, they just look at everyone else, and they have to be identical. If someone decides to spend Bitcoins that they don't have, this transaction won't be accepted by the network and won't be added to the ledger. That's how it's everyone verifies everyone else. So everyone checks if someone who's spending Bitcoin actually had the Bitcoin in their address before. Security on the Bitcoin, and actually on any blockchain, is provided by cryptography. That's a cutting edge of mathematics, and that's why it's called cryptocurrency. And so, in order for anyone to spend Bitcoins, they need to sign the transaction with their private key. Private key is some sort of password that encrypts the transaction. The transaction, and actually is a proof that the person owns the Bitcoins. And every node on the network, anyone who receives these transactions, they validate, they verify that the signature is correct, and that the person had Bitcoins, and that the transaction actually is done by the rules of the Bitcoin blockchain. Then the transactions are batched in one block, and every 10 minutes the block is solidified by so-called miners. All the transactions in the block, they are hashed into a certain number. So hash function is also a cryptographic function that the blockchain uses normally. And if you change anything in the input of this function, the output, the hash will be completely different. And all the blocks, the new block, the first header of the block contains the hash of the previous block, and that allows for tracking of the immutability of all the previous block before that one. Because if anyone changes something in the previous block, the hash will change, and the entire blockchain needs to be recalculated. generally, to understand the blockchain is just a Excel spreadsheet. It's just a database that contains the transactions from one account to another account. Basically, accounts with amounts plus the timestamps when it happened. You can think of it as a very simple Excel spreadsheet. That's all. In order for people to communicate with this database, we developed, software developers developed special software which is called the wallet. The wallet is just a human interface that allows you to see what's on the blockchain, which accounts you control, to which accounts you have private keys, passwords from which accounts you can spend with Bitcoins. There are several types of wallets. The first one is custodial. It means a third party, basically an intermediary, keeps your accounts and the private keys, and you only have the email and the password to log into the website, and then you can spend your coins. It's like the worst solution you can imagine, because you don't control your coins. So then we have something like a bank that keeps your money and allows you to log into your banking interface and then make a transaction. And if anything happens to that service, to the third party, they just will disappear together with your money. And if banks are protected by laws, the money is insured. This is an unregulated area, and if someone runs away, then the money is gone. I don't know if you've heard recently the Quadriga exchange in Canada. So there are exchanges where you can exchange dollars for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Because it's an unregulated space, there are no regulation of how you can run the exchange. And the biggest exchange that disappeared recently was the biggest Canadian exchange. Was Quadriga. It was, I think, about 2 months ago, and about $200 million just disappeared together with the owner. The next type of wallet is a mobile wallet. By the way, guys, did you bring the paper and the pen? I would just ask you to download the wallet. I have a few gift cards with Bitcoins to give away, probably around some quiz at the end. I have four cards, so they're specifically for the Rice wallet. So if you can download and you can experience yourself what the wallet looks like, if just go to the Play Store or whatever, the Apple Store, and search for Rice wallet. Yeah, you can do it right now. So this wallet's a mobile wallet. So what they do, they still, so you control your coins, you still keep your private key, which is a password, on your phone. However, if your phone is compromised because the private key is inside your phone, so your phone is eligible to sign transactions and send your Bitcoins to anyone. Every time when you install the wallet on your mobile device, or actually desktop or hardware wallet, any wallet, when you install the wallet, it will offer you a recovery seed. So the private key is a long string of numbers and letters, which is humanly unreadable. And recovery seed is usually 12 to 24 English words. That's obviously human readable, and the private keys are generated from the recovery seed. So even if you lose your phone, but you have a recovery seed, you can recover your wallet on any other device, or even on any other wallet. It doesn't have to be exactly the Rice wallet. It can be any type of wallet that uses the standard private key generation. Anyone's downloading Rice wallet? Awesome. So if you open Rice Wallet when you download it, so it will ask you to save the recovery seed, and that's the
So it's create a new wallet.
So the thing is, if you know that your recovery seed, you can recover your funds from any other device, even if you lose this one. If I know your recovery seed, I can steal the funds. So basically, you need to keep the safe, but far away from anyone else. Don't show your recovery seed to anyone.
Recovery what?
Recovery seed. Seed phrase, yeah.
And is that just a password?
Uh,
Just a chain of numbers and letters?
Yeah, so recovery seed phrase is like the 12 to 24 different English words, and the software generates the private key. Private key is just a long number. Because it's difficult for humans to remember the number, it's easier to kind of remember and write down the English words. So every time you need to save the recovery seed, make sure you write it down with pen and paper, because anything is what's digital can be stolen from your device.
Yeah. Was it safe to write it down? Once it's written down somewhere, is it better just to keep it in here?
Well, you can memorize all that.
Wow.
If
You
you
said it could be like a bunch of words, like a
Yeah,
poem or
if you
song,
are
right?
able to remember those words, and if you're able to recover them like 5 years from now, then it's safer to keep it in your head. That's the safest place. However, you might not need your words right now, because you might not lose your phone for another 2 years. But when you need it, you might not remember it. And it's not recommended to keep this recovery seed in digital form, because viruses and just the digital attack on your devices is much easier than just physical attack. So if I want to steal your recovery seed from your paper, I need to be physically around you, I need to go to your house. And it's much more difficult than just spam millions of devices and like a few people will click on the link. So it's just never keep it in a digital form. However, keep it safe somewhere. Think that the paper may be damaged by fire, by water, by rats.
Carved in stuff.
Yeah, there are solutions that there are like metal plates where you can carve your words and keep it somewhere. So yeah, that's the most important thing, because the security paradigm is a little bit different with cryptocurrencies and banks. Responsible for your money. The dollar transactions are traceable and can be reversed. All the Bitcoin transactions, they cannot be reversed. It just goes one way. Yeah, so the mobile wallets, they're pretty safe. There are desktop wallets. They work exactly like mobile wallets, but from your computer they might have more functionality, like mixing coins. There are wallets that work with different cryptocurrencies, so you might see different coins inside of your wallet. And the safest option is a hardware wallet. Hardware wallet is just a tiny device that might look like a USB stick. And what it does, it keeps the private key or the recovery inside of the stick, and it never goes into your computer. Even if your computer has lots of viruses and compromised and the keyloggers and anything, so the private key never leaves the device. So your transactions, they move to the hardware wallet, they're signed there, and then they can be transmitted to the public internet channels. And this is the difference between the credit cards and the cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, for example. So the credit cards, when you use a credit card, so they need to be an encrypted channel from the point of sale, from the merchant, to your bank account. And your information in unencrypted form, which is like printed on the credit card, that allows you to use your funds from your bank account, is transmitted through those channels. And those channels get hacked from now and then. However, banks are able to trace and reverse the transaction, so that's a little bit different. With Bitcoin, you sign the transaction and it's already encrypted, and then you can just transmit it through open channels. It doesn't matter. No one can steal your money. No one can do anything except for helping you to propagate this transaction through the Bitcoin blockchain faster. So if you are excited enough about Bitcoin, so probably you are wondering how to acquire one. There are a few options. So first of all, Bitcoin was designed as a peer-to-peer currency, and one of the options is to acquire Bitcoin peer-to-peer. You find someone who has Bitcoin, you bring them cash, you give them paper money, and they send you Bitcoin from their phone to your phone. OTC means over the counter. Basically, it's the same idea. So you find someone who is selling Bitcoins over the counter. You go, you meet them in person, you give them cash, they send you Bitcoin. There are special websites called the localbitcoins.org or .com. Not really sure. It's one of the first peer-to-peer exchanges, and you can find it's more or less like Craigslist, where people post their ads that they want to sell or buy Bitcoins, what price, and then you can negotiate, meet them in person. Some of them even accept electronic money transfer. The second option is so the first option is private. It preserves your privacy. You don't provide your identity. Your identity is not connected to your Bitcoin address. Bitcoin ATM is also a private option to buy Bitcoins. They look something like this. Some of them, they look like regular ATMs. You won't be able to solve the difference. How it works, you come to this machine, you open your wallet that you've just downloaded. When you click or tap the receipt button, and then it will show you the QR code, which is your Bitcoin address. Then you scan your phone right over there, then you stick in physical money, and then it sends you Bitcoin to your wallet. So it also doesn't require KYC, know your customer identity. So as of now, it's private. Maybe the law will change in the future.
Presumably there's a fee for using the ATM?
Yeah, ATM's usually quite expensive. Maybe the cheapest I've seen in Toronto is like charges 6%, but usually it can go up to 10.
How many of those are there in Toronto?
Well, like a lot.
Yeah, I've never seen one. Is there one in Richmond Hill?
You can just Google this thing.
Oh, okay.
Bitcoin ATMs, and they're more in downtown, maybe some of them. It's probably around 100 or so. Yeah, but they're quite expensive, so it can be 10, it can be 15%, depends on the volatility of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a volatile currency, so that's why they need kind of hedge against those movements, so that's why they keep the margin high. However, it's the private way to buy Bitcoin if you don't want to connect your name to your Bitcoin addresses. There are exchanges where you can wire your money from your bank account, and then you can buy Bitcoins there. It's the cheapest option available. So probably might lose around 1% of maybe 2%, depending, because like bank charges you for the wire transfer, the exchange charges you like usually it's 0.2% for each trade plus the withdrawal fees. So, but this is the cheapest way of acquiring Bitcoin. However, what you compromise, you provide all your identity information. So the exchanges, they have your IDs. It might not be bad up until the moment when exchange is hacked, and then the hackers own the information about you plus the Bitcoin addresses that you own, and then because everything is public, they can check online how much money you have, and then you're an easy target. And the new option, actually, the Rice Wallet is a new company from Toronto. They introduce these gift cards that you can buy in different shops. Usually they also charge about 6-7%. It's just a nice way to try Bitcoin, maybe to give it as a gift card. We downloaded Rice Wallet. More than 4. So just do that little piece there. So the Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency and the blockchain, and a lot of other blockchain appeared after that. Most of them just copy and paste of Bitcoin code with different changes. They introduced different qualities. The second largest cryptocurrency by the market cap is Ethereum, that started actually in Toronto by a young guy, Vitalik Buterin. And the Ethereum blockchain allows for programming. Anyone can write a smart contract, which is a software that is executed automatically on the blockchain. And their tagline was an unstoppable code. It's impossible to, it's the same thing about the censorship resistant. It's a software that runs, there's no way to stop it from running. However, all these other coins, they have their own blockchains, and they don't operate with Bitcoin blockchain. They're not interoperable. So if you want to keep a different coin, if you want to buy a different coin, you need to download a different wallet that communicates with the blockchain that you want to have the coin on. I'm a Waves blockchain ambassador, as I said before. So the Waves decided to build a solution for businesses and something that's very user-friendly. Bitcoin is quite technical. Bitcoin does one thing, is store of value, and it's the highest security blockchain. The Waves decided to go a different route, decided to design the blockchain for businesses that's easy to operate. And if you download their wallet, so you'll see that you have a multi-currency wallet inside, so they support 8 different currencies. They also have a exchange inside of their wallet, which is decentralized. And Waves allows for easy token creation. Have you guys heard of the ICO? Do you know what it means? ICOs were really popular in 2017. It stands for initial coin offerings, like a spin-off of initial public offering, the IPO. So that's something that you run a crowdfunding campaign on a blockchain, usually Ethereum. And so the idea is that you create your own coin on Ethereum blockchain and you sell it to people with the promise that this coin will cost something in the future, or you will be able to exchange this coin for the service or product of the company. So the Waves is the easiest platform to launch your own coin, or tokens as they call them. You can do it within like 15 seconds. No programming is required. So you can think of those tokens as loyalty points. Probably the best application for businesses, just to issue their loyalty points, and instead of, sometimes you go to a coffee shop and you get this card where every time you buy coffee you get a stamp, and when you collect 10 stamps you get a free cup of coffee. Instead of that, you can receive just a token that the coffee shop issued, and then you just buy a coffee cup with your tokens. So for the meetup, I created the tokens just to get familiarized, and also the meetup is that crypto meetup is held in that channel, which is a video production company, and you can spend that coins that they call their loyalty points, and you can buy the services of that video production company, that channel. If you want, you can download the Waves wallet. Then you can go to that link, which is bit.ly/that-crypto form. You can send me your Waves wallet address, and I will send you that tokens that you can move around.
For what? Tokens?
That tokens, yeah. So that tokens is a loyalty points for that channel and for that crypto meetup, where you can pay with them for the services of video production studio. And also you can play around, see how it works. Maybe sell them inside of your wallet because there is a decentralized exchange. So yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention, like maybe a few tips for you need to understand that cryptocurrencies, they're not like dollars or fiat currencies. It's a completely different security paradigm. So you are responsible for the security of your coins. If you lose your password, there's no way to recover your coins. You'll see them on the blockchain, you just won't be able to spend them. That's how cryptography works. So no one can brute force or break your password. So if you lose your recovery seed phrase, there's no way you can get your coins back. If you send your coins to a wrong address, there's no way you can recover those coins.
There's no undo? No.
There's no undo button. It only goes one way. And also you have to think about, like, yeah, if it's a good way to keep your seed phrase in the paper, how secure is the paper? Is it a good thing to keep it inside of your head? What's the contingency plan in case you die? How you want your relatives to inherit your coins? I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, that's the problem. You need to be able to explain to your relatives how to use those coins without them knowing how to use those coins while you're still alive, because if they have your seed, they can move your coins without you knowing about that. The entire crypto space, the entire cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin is still experimental. No one really knows how it's going to play out in the future. There's still a chance that the governments may criminalize Bitcoin. So the major advice is don't invest in Bitcoin more than you can afford to lose. And yeah, you're welcome to join the meetup group. It's a weekly gathering on Tuesday nights in downtown Toronto. We also have YouTube video streams on YouTube, and all our presentations are still there in the past 2 years. And questions?
Can I buy with Bitcoin today? Like, can I go buy a coffee? Can I order a pizza?
No.
Okay. So what are people mainly using it to exchange for right now?
The main use case for Bitcoin right now is to move money across borders, large cross-border payments, and a store of value. So if you need to move $100 million, it's quite problematic to use the banking system. With Bitcoin, it's quite easy and cheap. So a few years ago, people were talking about that Bitcoin provide the cheapest transactions, but actually it's not true. It's not the the cost of transactions is going higher and higher, and the more adoption we have, and the higher the price of Bitcoin, it's only gonna go up. So basically, the Bitcoin is good for large transaction cross borders. It's one use case. Another use case is speculation, especially in Canada. So we have credit cards, we have monetary system that's pretty stable. Like using the credit cards is safe. Everyone has a bank account, so I don't know if you just search online for the benefits of Bitcoin. People will say, yeah, there are 2 billion people, unbanked people, or underbanked people in the world that can't open a bank account because they don't have an identity. And that's the Bitcoin is a solution because it's global, it's permissionless, anyone can use it. Probably, it's just not the case in Canada. I don't know anyone who doesn't have a bank account in Canada. So, and the second case, the use case for Bitcoin, as I said, it's a store of value. Because it's a limited number of it, it's very scarce. It's more scarce than gold. So the value of Bitcoin theoretically should go up. The more people join the network, demand goes up, supply stays the same.
It's a great investment opportunity if you
Price.
do it smart.
Yeah, price should go. However, as I mentioned, it's still experimental, so no one really knows what's going to happen in the future with Bitcoin. Even in comparison to gold, if the price of gold goes up, we can deploy more resources to extracting more gold. With Bitcoin, it doesn't work this way. There is a schedule of issuing Bitcoins until 2140, where the production of new Bitcoins will stop. There will be less and less Bitcoin produced every year. Right now it's 12.5 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. Next May it's gonna be half of that, 6.25, and then it's gonna less and less. And as I mentioned, out of 21 million Bitcoins, 18.5 million is already minted, is already in existence, and probably it's estimated that around 3 million Bitcoins are lost. So people lose their private keys, people die, and they're unrecoverable. So if you can imagine, so there will be at the most 17 million Bitcoins. And with time people will lose more Bitcoin. So the value of Bitcoin will only go up. Theoretically, I can't promise you. And it's right now the market is quite small, relatively small. The Bitcoin is 130 billion dollars, which is nothing in comparison to any other market. Real estate, gold. I think gold is about 8 trillion dollars. So it's very easy to manipulate the price. So if anyone's small whale with like the investment fund, $100 billion tries to move the price, it's very easy for them to manipulate the price. So yeah, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. But probably you want to invest something just in case it goes 1,000 times up in the price. So yeah, let's do the quiz. I have four gift cards. So who remembers what is the seed? Why it's important? Seed phrase.
It's the recovery seed. It's supposed to be like something you can remember, English phrase, whatever, keep it safe in a safe place.
And how do you use it?
It works in conjunction with a private key to basically validate your account.
Yeah, almost. So you need the recovery seed phrase to generate your private keys. And if you lose your phone, you can regenerate your private keys from the same recovery phrase on any other device. So what year Satoshi Nakamoto was born?
Nobody knows.
So, yes, you just scratch the thing and you can scan it with your Rice wallet. You can do it right now and see if it works.
So they're basically giving away money for free with this.
Yeah, so the company just started and then it's like a
It's
promotion.
just a way to get
so-
people to use them. Okay.
Yeah, so now you know how to buy Bitcoins with gift cards and maybe. By the way, if you want to buy gift cards, we sell them at the meetup or at that channel in downtown. Any questions so far? How many Bitcoins are there in total?
21 million.
Run out of questions.
What is your first and last name?
Right, it is. Oh yeah, that's true. Does anyone know how many cryptocurrencies are there? That are traded. 30?
Probably hundreds.
There's hundreds. There's over 100 for sure.
Anyone else?
Traded. The ones that trade.
Yeah, so
It's traded.
well, there is a website that tracks all the currencies
I
and
have
prices.
I have
So
the link.
you don't have any idea of how many.
25.
Maybe 500.
1,000, 200,
1500.
Okay, everyone just tell me one number and then the closest will be.
I'll go with 800.
Okay.
1,000, 275.
100. 450.
You guys?
600.
So it's like over 2,000.
Easy. $1,000.
Yeah. Any questions? Just